and welcome to another video here on AV Forums. I'm Phil Hinton, I'm the editor and I have been since 2003. I'm also a trained and qualified ISF and THX audio and video calibrator. In this video we're looking at the Optoma or Optoma UHL55. It's a 4K DLP LED light based projector. It's designed to be portable, so let's take a look at the design first. This is the first 4K DLP home entertainment projector that's been specifically designed to fit its role as an all-round entertainment projector. All of the competing models to the UHL55 are traditional office-based designs with the lens to one side and exhausts to the other, with some connections around the back. The UHL55 has a unique design which fits the role of home entertainment machine. It looks Nintendo-like in its boxy shape, and this is deliberate as it separates the unit into two parts, with the sound and speakers to the bottom and the lens and projector controls to the top. It also has a two-tone colour with a gunmetal grey to the bottom and black to the top of the unit. The bottom vents on the front of the unit house the two speaker drivers, which have a power output of 8 watts per channel. The power might seem small, but for the designed use they fit the bill with a strong mid-range thanks to the space available for the drivers to move. It will never challenge a standalone sound system, and it's not intended to, but if you're using the UHL55 as a portable gaming machine or movie projector, it'll give you enough sound and a better sound quality compared to competing models which have built-in audio or weaker mono systems, as seen on some DLP projectors. It's also nice to see a lens cover at this price point, and although it's manual in nature, as soon as you move the cover to the open position using the slider on the top, the Optoma is quick to get started. Closing this also switches the projector off. Given it is LED light based, this is not unusual, as one of the advantages of using such a system is the instant on and off capabilities. There are also other controls next to the lens slider, and these are for power, focus, volume control and manual focus, with buttons having numerous responses depending on how they are used and which you select. Another really neat feature is the autofocus capabilities of the UHL55, which uses the sensor on the front right next to the lens. This uses a laser to work out the focus range and automatically makes sure the picture is in focus, and it worked every time we tried it. Airflow to keep the projector and its LED light source cool happens from both sides of the UHL55, taking in air and passing it through to large fans and exhaust at the rear where the hot air is expelled. Below the fans and outlet are the connections. The lens on the UHL55 is fixed, so there's no lens shift or zoom. The size of your image from the Optoma will depend on placement. The zoom ratio is such that a 100-inch diagonal image requires the projector to be at least 8.5 to 9 feet back. As there is no lens shift, you should also take the time to place the projector at just the right height to the screen so you don't require keystone. As with any projector, you should avoid keystone as it introduces image artifacts that just a little time and care in finding the best spot will eliminate. As already mentioned, focus is done by the sensor and it manages to get the image pin sharp every time. It really is a neat trick. All of this makes the UHL55 a great portable projector that you can use and put away again for big screen gaming and sports events. The connections for the Optoma are positioned at the back and are well featured for a home entertainment focused projector. We have two HDMI 2.0 ports which will accept full 4K and compatible HDR10 signals. We also get a 3.5mm audio output and headphone socket, optical digital output, two USB ports with one 2.0 and the other 3.0 with an RJ45 Ethernet and DC power input rounding things off. The Optoma also features Wi-Fi support to run the Android TV system. The remote control provided is a Bluetooth version which is small and plastic. The layout of the buttons are fairly intuitive to use, with the main use keys within the directional and enter buttons. The home button opens up the home screen that gives access to apps and other options, while the middle list key opens up the menu on screen for picture quality and sound options. The back button is next to this. By using just these keys, we can access all the possible setup options and settings. Overall, the remote is small, light and plastic, but it does the job as you would expect. By pressing the home button, we get the home page of the projector. It's laid out with options along the top of the screen and selection boxes underneath these. On the opening home screen and the projector, we have source selection, projector settings and the volume control for the built-in speakers. Moving to application, we have a further 5 selection boxes: apps, smart home, marketplace, media player and the Optoma info wall. This is running on Android TV software. As you would imagine, under apps we can select a number of applications that have been installed on the UHL55. This does include apps we've already seen that have selection boxes under the application menu, such as the info wall, marketplace and media player. You can add further apps using the marketplace, where you will find useful features such as Netflix built in, although this does not include 4K HDR content. There are other apps available such as Spotify, TED and the usual Android TV lineup. Apps did take a rather long time to load properly, with Netflix seeming to take forever to load all the images and graphics. We've got a 76 meg internet connection here, so it was the processing on the projector taking the time to get going. Once playing HD images, the application looked okay, but there was excessive compression in the black and darker areas of the image, and this is not what you would expect from a standalone media player, which would be easier to attach to the Optoma rather than using the built-in systems. Moving from application to settings, we get selection boxes for language, firmware update, which lets you check straight away if the Optoma is using the latest version, plus you have the network settings and the area and time setup. Moving to the setup menus, we have all the controls to help with setting the picture quality correctly. The first selection after pressing image settings is display mode, and here we can select what picture mode we want to use. In this shot, the projector is set to HDR, but with SDR content you can select cinema, simulated HDR, game, reference, bright, user and 3D. A trained ISF calibrator will also be able to unlock 2 further day and night presets that can then be locked once calibrated. Dynamic range is greyed out for SDR material, but with HDR content you can select HDR auto and the picture mode for HDR. The out-of-the-box presets work best here, as this really isn't an HDR projector, and the use of these controls adds minimal changes, and usually not for the better. We then have the usual front panel controls of brightness, contrast, sharpness, colour and tint settings, along with gamma. Note that these are the out-of-the-box settings seen here and not the calibrated end results. Under colour settings, we have the controls for the colour temperature, where we have 3 selections of cold, cool and standard. Below that you can change the colour space, but it's best to leave this set to auto. Colour matching is the colour management system, which sadly doesn't work, and RGB gain and bias is the grayscale white balance settings. Brightness mode sets the LED light source, and you can do this in stages from 50 to 100% or by selecting 3 presets under the dynamic black name. Digital zoom and aspect ratio can be left in their out-of-the-box settings. Pure motion is the frame interpolation system of the UHL55, and as always with film-based material at 24 frames per second, this should be switched off. You can, of course, experiment with the low, middle and high settings for sport and other fast-moving content. For gaming, it's best to leave it off for the best possible lag time. As well as the picture controls, we also have menus for setting the audio quality, and most of these are self-explanatory. Projector settings gives us the options for manual focus, calibration of the autofocus, keystone options that really should be left alone and auto definitely switched off, as well as power settings. Under others, we have test patterns, which should help you show up any focus issues. We also have other settings for the type of projection setup and other set once and leave settings. We set about measuring and calibrating the Optoma UHL55 as we do with all projectors. This is done first directly from the projector, which takes the room and screen surface out of the measurements so we can get a baseline of just what the projector's performance is. We then measure and calibrate from the screen for picture quality assessment. Looking at the out-of-the-box grayscale results, we can see a strong red push within the grayscale tracking, especially at the lower end where this is seen with on-screen images. Gamma is also tracking with a severe S-curve, which is too dark in the lower end of the scale and too bright at 90% of brightness. This does affect the image on screen when we are talking about image accuracy to the industry standards, but we also have to remember that this is not a home cinema projector for critical movie watching, and the actual delta E errors are not that high, even though some image issues are present. Colour gamut coverage is again reasonable for a projector that is not aimed at home cinema use, and as a DLP it is unusual to get as wide a coverage of the Rec 709 gamut, but the Optoma does a great job of this thanks to the LED light source, and most points are close to where they should be. Correcting the white point and the grayscale should make this even more accurate. The Optoma has a suite of calibration controls, and while nobody buying a £1,500 projector will spend the £200 to £300 for a professional calibration, it is interesting to see just how well it does calibrate. While the Optoma does have the calibration controls, that doesn't automatically mean that we will be able to correct all of the issues present. While we can get the grayscale tracking slightly flatter at 2 points, the red push in black remains and gamma still has an aggressive S-curve, which makes blacks darker and crushes detail, while the brighter end is just too bright. Delta errors are now under the visible threshold of 3, but the red colour in the blacks is still visible with on-screen material. By correcting the grayscale, the white point is now more accurate, and this shows on the colour gamut chart. However, while the Optoma UHL55 has a colour management system on board, it doesn't actually work in fine-tuning the gamut performance, so we are left with the same basic results as out of the box. We're not sure that the target audience for this projector will ever notice any image issues present, but it was interesting to have a look at the results. As for HDR, well, this is not a very bright projector, and the contrast ratio possible is a very low 644:1 on-off. HDR is also very difficult to show on a reflective technology like projectors, and that's certainly the case here. There is no sudden jump in brightness of specular highlights, however the Optoma does slightly change its gamma response to that of the PQ EOTF, and while it can't track it correctly due to the lack of contrast performance here, it does give HDR content playback a slightly more contrasty look. Once again, this is not a critical viewing device for films or HDR content, it's an all-round home entertainment device. Being a home entertainment projector and a DLP, we didn't expect the black levels to be great, and we were right. In this shot here, we give as close a representation to what black levels are actually like, although getting an accurate to life image using a video camera is near impossible. Blacks are a dark grey, and there is no above black shadow detail to be seen. Contrast also struggles, and as has been mentioned already, it's not a very bright projector given the use of the LED light source and no bulb. As such, you will need to make sure you close the curtains and control light as best you can in your viewing room. Being a DLP using the XPR DMD chip, which flashes 4 times to produce a UHD-like image, the image is detailed and sharp. We did have issues with a definite red push within all images in SDR and HDR, and had to fix that by adjusting the red energy in the image. Colours for SDR content were realistic and natural, with good skin tones and well saturated colours. Switching to HDR content, and again the Optoma manages to play back sharp and detailed images with excellent colours and no signs of posterisation or banding within colours. We tested the projector with a number of well-known test discs and scenes, and apart from the lack of deep blacks, we found the image quality was very good indeed. Images were clean and noise-free, which leads us to believe that there is backdoor noise reduction going on, but for the target audience, we don't think this makes it an issue at all. So while we've covered standard dynamic range HD and 4K HDR, you may have noticed some red glasses on the desk next to me here. Yes, this is a 3D projector. Projectors are keeping 3D alive in the home. TVs, you can't buy a TV now with 3D. However, this projector does have it. It's a DLP, which means it has really good motion, and it also has a lack of crosstalk, which means that the images are really quite good when it comes to 3D. So I actually sat down to watch a few test clips from James Cameron's Titanic, a film I know quite well because I've used it for a lot of 3D tests in the past. And I actually ended up sitting watching most of the movie because the performance really is quite good. And where the blacks are not great with HD and HDR 4K, when you put the glasses on, they improve quite a bit. There's still black crush in there, and picture quality is still not up there with the very best in projectors. But for this £1,500 machine, actually on a large screen with the glasses on, it looked really, really good. So thumbs up to Optoma for the 3D side of things. Being a home entertainment projector, gaming is also important, and the lag time was a reasonable 66 milliseconds, which will be okay for your casual gamers likely to buy a projector like this. However, it is slow if you're a more competitive gamer. So that just about wraps up our review of the Optoma UHL55. One other thing to mention is that Optoma actually sent me an Echo Dot here to use with this. It does have AI capabilities. You can ask it to switch on and switch off. What I did find was it was really quite a long-winded way of getting around it. I wanted to film it and put a guide together for this video. I just ran out of time. This unit goes back tomorrow morning. So I really didn't have the time to sit and do that, but I will in future put a video together on how to get the skills set up for devices to switch them on and switch them off. But overall, this is a cracking little projector. It's not a home cinema projector. It's not for critical movie viewing, so if that's your thing, this is not for you. However, if you're the type of person who wants to watch football on the big screen, you like a bit of gaming, you're not that competitive, so 66 milliseconds is not going to make any difference to your performance, and you also want 3D, this is a really quite a compelling choice at £1,500, and the quality is certainly up there. I think value for money, it really is quite good. So thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe, and if you liked the video then please like the video, and also click the bell for notifications. And come back and see us again for more video reviews. This is the first of many for us this year. You'll see lots more covering display devices, TVs and home cinema. So please come back and see us again very soon. But for now, thanks for watching.